Hello, this is the Provoked Prawn, and this is the Corsair Sabre RGB Pro Wireless. This is a wireless version of Corsair's Champion Series lineup of Sabre Pro mice. I did a video, an unboxing of the wired version of this mouse previously, and now here is the wireless version to entertain us with a number of interesting specifications that include up to 2000 Hz polling rate, a insane max DPI of 26,000, 650 IPS, 50 Gs acceleration, Corsair's quick strike button, zero gap design, on-RON switches, Bluetooth, wireless and wired connectivity via USB-C, and a number of other highlights that include multiple DPI levels adjustable within the software that I'll show you later on, 90 hours of battery life over Bluetooth, or 60 over Slipstream wireless, and 79 grams of weight. Now this is an unboxing video, but I'm mostly focusing on reviewing this mouse and talking about what it's like to use. It's interesting because in some ways it's a downgrade from the wired Sabre Pro, which had an 8000 Hz polling rate and was designed to work with NVIDIA's reflex latency analyzer, which I've done a video on separately. This is a wireless version, obviously, which gives you a lot more freedom because you have that wireless capability. Now, I really like this mouse for a number of reasons. I'm going to talk to you about other options at the end, though, and discuss that. But what I wanted to show is the highlights of it. Now, it is a largish mouse with a nice sort of ergonomic shape to it. Fits really nicely in the hand and pushes up into the palm quite well. It has 6 programmable buttons, 7 buttons in total. You'll notice there's a button on the underside just above the switch between Bluetooth, wireless and wired modes, and that's for profile switching. There's also a dinky little DPI switching button just behind the mouse wheel, which has an LED indicator on it. It's interesting because this mouse is pitched as having 2 RGB lighting zones. Basically, one is that LED indicator on the DPI button, the other one's the Corsair logo. It actually has less RGB than the wired version, which is logical because obviously you want to save battery life. You have a 2.4 GHz Slipstream wireless dongle, which also has a little dock on the mouse itself that you'll see here with a cover on it. I don't know really why they've put this cover on. You'll see a lot of docks on other mice that don't really bother with a cover. I feel like that's extra weight. Now this is 79 grams, which is semi-lightweight. I've seen quite a bit of lighter mice than this. It's not necessarily a bad weight though. It's not particularly heavy, and it does feel nice. It does feel pretty good in the hand. USB-C connection cable, as you can see, which isn't braided, which is unusual for Corsair. It's just a rubberized one. But it does fit in both directions, obviously being USB-C, but I've actually seen some mice with the USB port that don't actually connect both ways, which is weird. So it's nice to see that this works. It's not particularly a lightweight or fancy cable. I've seen much nicer wireless cables previously. Now, talking about the shape and overall ergonomics of it, it's a very nicely designed mouse with some great ergonomics. One interesting thing that I found with it is the texture of the buttons is quite rough, so you can see this has this matte finish to it. I actually found left and right click have got a particularly rough texture to them. There's no textured side grips on the side, but it does have a really good setup in it. It won't slip out of the hand terribly easily. Also really like the side buttons because they're really nice and large and easy to feel. There's a noticeable gap between the two, and it's really easy just to know where your finger is and obviously to access them easily as well. It also has Corsair's quick strike buttons that uses on-RON switches with a zero gap design, so it's pre-tension basically to give you a really satisfying click, and that is one of the things I really enjoyed about this mouse, is the click feel and the feedback from it when you're gaming. It's got a good satisfying action to it. I also have had some pretty successful games with this, and I'll show you some clips of it later on just to demonstrate some of the action from that. I'm just going to let you hear some of the clicks now and demonstrate just the sound that comes out of them because it's quite satisfying. On the underside you have 100% PTFE feet, which means that it is easy to flick about and really easy to use thanks to that design. It's also obviously lightweight and it's just agile enough to move about. I found it really good to use, really good to game on and enjoy as well. There have been some problems in the software, which I'll talk to you a bit about later on. Now, there are 6 programmable buttons, and you can do a variety of things that I'll show you in Corsair's IQ software to tweak what you can do with those, including doing things like launching voice mod actions, which is pretty interesting. So if you have a voice mod premium license, you can use the buttons on there. You also have the ability to switch between multiple DPI levels and set a sniper DPI level too. So it's a very flexible mouse, as you'd expect from a Corsair Champion series device. The overall experience with this mouse has been really good. I really enjoy the setup of it, and it's really agile and accurate and responsive, which is obviously what you want, and you're not losing much from that wireless connection either over wired. So the Slipstream wireless connection is pretty solid. I've not had any problems with it. Now, plugging in with wired, you do get the extra options in the software. For example, setting up the 2000 Hertz polling rate, and you can also then set for 5 onboard memory profiles, so you can set up different settings for those profiles and then flick between them by pressing the button on the underside. That profile switching button isn't customizable in the software. In a close-up look at the buttons, you'll see a bit more about what I was talking about, the rough texture, a zero gap design, really close click action. It's no unnecessary play, and it just gives some really satisfying clicks. One of the most satisfying click actions I've seen, and it's just been a great mouse to game on. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Now I wanted to show a clip of me using the mouse, and I was going to do some side-by-side action to show the mouse in my hand while I was gaming with some clips recorded, because I was doing really well on Rainbow Six on this new special showdown event. But when I started to capture the footage, trying to run the camera and the mouse at the same time, for some reason I just started doing terribly. But what I wanted to demonstrate was just the action on the desk and how it moves around and how well it does. And I actually found it's really easy to flick around in quick movements, whereas a sort of frantic battle with things going on in very close quarters. So this is a 3 versus 3 shooter, so there's a lot of pressure to do well. You only have over and under a shotgun and a revolver, so you've got to make sure those hits connect, and so quick movement is pretty essential. And there's been a lot of fun on this mouse. Actually, yeah, it did really well. I had multiple games where I'd come out with 8 kills, several wins, and it was fantastic. So I thoroughly enjoyed using it. And now I'm going to dive into the IQ software and show you a few little things there too. And here we are within Corsair's IQ software. You'll see that both the Slipstream wireless dongle and the mouse are available separately as different options. It's worth checking in here as well to make sure both have the most up-to-date firmware. When you go in here, you can then do various things. You'll see, as I said, there's only 6 programmable buttons because the profile button underneath isn't changeable, but you can obviously change other buttons in a variety of ways. One of the things that jumped out at me is this voice mod actions down here, so you can see that you can add various different voice mod things. If you use voice mod, it's pretty interesting. But you also have all the usual things that you can set up here. So you can set up a different keystroke, for example. You can set up different mouse actions. You can have keyboard actions as well. And it's also possible to record your own macros as you'd expect. And you can take delays out of that and all sorts of other things. So there's loads of potentials in here. One of the other things that's worth noting is that you also have the sniper capability. So you could program one of the side buttons, for example, to be the sniper mode. Now, sniper mode is in Corsair's DPI settings. You'll see as standard there are 5 programmable levels of DPI. You'll note there's also an icon indicator to let you know what level you're on. You can go all the way up to 26,000 in terms of max DPI, which is obviously insanely high. You have a little color indicator next to those, and you'll see that change on this little LED on top of the mouse behind the mouse wheel. So you have a visual cue to know, what level you're on. Obviously, if you have 26,000 set, you'll soon know when you're on that one. But the sniper mode down the bottom here doesn't actually get assigned to that DPI button, but you can assign it to another button. So you can set a really low DPI level for sniper mode, program it in here, and then you can then use that with a button press, which I really like. Surface calibration lets you use this setup to then track any mouse mat that you have. So you basically just drag this and just keep doing spirals and following that until you get the right calibration for your mouse mat or desk surface. The mouse is currently plugged in wired mode, and you'll note if you go into the settings, you'll see that you can adjust the polling rate. So standard you have it at 1000 Hertz, but you can go lower if you so wish, or you can go up to 2000 Hertz. One of the things that I've found, which is a bit odd, which I shall try and demonstrate now. I have a chunk of text here, and this is when it's in 2000 Hertz polling rate. If I try and select it, every now and then, occasionally, it just goes weird and just doesn't respond properly. So I'm just trying to drag to select some text and move it around. And what it does is it keeps moving the letters, or it just completely goes weird on me. And it doesn't let you select things properly like you normally would be able to. In fact, it's quite intermittent, so it's not like a regular problem. You can see it's doing it, and sometimes it isn't doing it. And it just basically goes completely bonkers for no logical or apparent reason. And I found that it only happens when it's in the 2000 Hertz polling rate, and it doesn't happen in everything. So it doesn't happen in Notepad, for example, and other things. But I think it's worth noting. So I found that 2000 Hertz might be a bit iffy. This might be adjusted in future firmware, so it might not be a problem, or it might not be a problem for you. It could just be a random one for me. You'll also see that there's other things in here that includes pairing and also profile switching. So it's worth noting, as I said earlier, you can have 5 different profiles. You need to plug the mouse in with the wired cable in order to set these up. Then you can save them to the onboard memory. You can have up to 5 different profiles set there. You then have all the usual things, so you can have hardware lighting effects. There are 2 lighting zones, as I said, but really there's only one, and that is the Corsair logo. You have a number of different options here. You can see only the logo is selected as the lighting zone, so really although the DPI button light is one, it isn't adjustable. And you'll see that you can then go through all the usual effects here. To be honest, the RGB lighting is okay. It's bright enough and nice enough, but it's nothing fancy, and your palm's covering it most of the time anyway. You can set a hardware lighting level, so when IQ isn't running, let's say your PC's locked or you just not launched IQ, it's set to that mode anyway, and you have that there. So you have a really easy setup. So fairly straightforward settings within IQ, and have some flexibility in terms of macros and whatever else you want to set, and some nice adjustments when you're in wired mode. I thought there were some things worth covering here. Now, one of the things I want to talk to you about is potential options for other mice on a similar price point. So, for example, I looked at the ROG Gladius 3 Wireless recently, and that mouse might be more appealing for some reason, so I'd recommend checking out the review. I'm probably going to do a versus video to compare the two in the near future. I really like the Sabre Pro Wireless for sure, but the Gladius 3 is interesting because you have swappable switches on it, so you can take it apart, you can actually replace the switches on there. It also has optical switches as well as the Omron ones, so you have the option of 2 different switch setups, and you can get to the battery as well, so you'll be able to change out the battery in the future. So that one might be better in the long term than the Corsair, and something to consider. However, at this price point, the Corsair Sabre RGB Pro Wireless is a fantastic choice, especially if you like larger mice and you want something agile, comfortable, and great in a number of different ways with pro-level specs and a really responsive design and fantastic clicks. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Hope you found this video useful, interesting, hilarious, or otherwise. Take a look at these other videos that I think you might find interesting as well. And have a look at the description for links and other information you might find useful. Click that join button to see the benefits of being a member of my YouTube channel. And most importantly, have a great life.